Chosen one, pause for a moment and listen carefully. If you are here now, it is because this moment was prepared for you. Something greater is at play, and your presence in this message is proof of that. I am about to reveal something that may change how you understand your own existence. A demon was sent to destroy you. It came with one goal: to extinguish your light, destroy your essence, and make you disappear. However, what happened was completely unexpected. Something even the darkest forces could not have predicted. It not only spoke, but was also transformed by your presence. This encounter was no accident. It was your light that disarmed and unsettled it. While it expected to find fear, hatred, or anger, it encountered something very different. An unshakable force that cannot be manipulated, an essence that exposes the truth and transforms everything around it. And that is precisely what makes you different. From the moment it crossed your path, everything changed. For it, for you, and for the spiritual balance around you. This story is not just about what you faced, but about the cosmic impact of your existence. Do not underestimate what is happening. What you did transcended the physical and touched forces operating on a much grander scale. Now, listen closely. This video reflects who you are, what you carry within, and what it means for the world around you. You are not here to hide or survive. You were placed here to make an impact, to transform, to remind everyone, even the darkest forces, that there is something in the light that cannot be extinguished. This revelation is not just for you to understand what happened. It is for you to realize the depth of your mission and the strength you carry, even without realizing it. You need to listen to this message until the end, because it was made to open your eyes to something you already know, but have not yet fully understood. This is the moment to recognize your strength and your role. Do not underestimate what is to come. From the moment you entered its life, everything began to change. What was planned to be a hunt, a calculated destruction, turned into complete disarray. Your presence brought a force it could not comprehend, something that prevented it from achieving its goal. It was not your specific words or actions, but the way you existed, how you maintained your peace, even in the face of something so dark. For it, this was unsettling. It had destroyed many before you, all falling to fear, chaos, or manipulation. But, for the first time, it encountered someone who did not respond as expected. Your calm was not just resistance, it was an affirmation of something greater, something it had never faced before. What you need to understand is that your light does not just repel darkness, it transforms it. When it tried to confront you, something within it began to break. It could not sustain the same power in your presence because your essence exposed all the cracks and flaws within it. It was not about physical strength or direct resistance. It was about the impact of a truth it could not erase. Every interaction between you, every attempt it made to bring you down, made it question itself more. Your firm and calm posture, even in the face of its threats, disarmed all the strategies it had used before. That was when it began to realize that there was something in you that went beyond its understanding. For the demon, this failure was more than humiliating. It was an event that shook its very essence. It began to feel something it had never felt before: vulnerability. For the first time, it was not in control. And the strangest part for it was that this did not come from a direct confrontation, but from something it could not control or manipulate. The light you carry cannot be distorted by external forces. It realized this slowly but with painful clarity. Every attempt to break you resulted in the opposite. It found itself confronting its own fears, flaws, and even the traumas that shaped it into who it is. You did not just resist. You made it look inward in a way it had never experienced. This impact is not limited to it or you. What happened during this encounter began to resonate in other dimensions, in layers beyond what is visible. When something as powerful as light and darkness clash, the balance of the universe is affected. You may not realize it, but your existence and the way you face this situation created waves that influence the world around you. Your choices and your posture not only destabilized a dark being, but also showed others, even those watching from afar, that it is possible to resist without losing your essence. This event is a milestone, a turning point that transcends common human understanding. Now, the demon is at a point where it can no longer deny what happened. It came to destroy and ended up being transformed. It was not immediate, but the process began the moment it felt its strategies were not working. The control it had over itself began to dissolve, and this opened space for something it never imagined it would experience: admiration for you. It began to realize that your strength was not something physical or material. It was something internal, unshakable, something it had never encountered before in any of its hunts. And this recognition was not just a surprise for it, but a direct challenge to its own identity. It tried everything: manipulative words, emotional attacks, and even illusions to distort your perception of reality. The goal was simple: to break you from within, destabilize your certainties, and extinguish your light. It knew how to exploit weaknesses, and had done so with others before. But with you, something different happened. Nothing seemed to work. You did not react with hatred, respond with despair, or fall into its traps. With every attempt to control you, it faced an insurmountable wall. Your truth, your calm, and your conviction were unshakable. And this not only confused it, it infuriated it because it challenged everything it understood about power and control. What was most unsettling for it was not just your resistance, but how you seemed to see through the illusions it created. It was used to dominating its victims through doubt and fear, but you saw beyond that. It was as if you were looking directly at its essence, ignoring all the layers of darkness it tried to use to intimidate you. This disarmed it in a way it had never experienced. It began to realize that your strength did not come from something external, but from something deeply rooted within you. It was a force that could not be manipulated, only respected. As it persisted in its strategies, something began to change within it. It started to feel something it had never experienced before: doubts about itself. You, without even trying, made it confront parts of itself it had ignored or hidden. This process was uncomfortable for it, but inevitable. The demon was created to destroy, but for the first time, it began to question the purpose of its own existence. It realized that you were not like the others it had faced. You were different, and more than that, you were exposing its truth to itself. It was something it could not avoid or control. This internal confrontation began to transform it in ways it could not explain. It felt that, for the first time, control was no longer in its hands. And the most frightening part for it was that, even in the face of this loss of control, it did not feel anger toward you. It felt something almost inconceivable for it: admiration. With every attempt to manipulate you, it was the one who ended up changed. What once seemed like a battle to destroy now felt like a lesson it needed to learn. It began to realize that perhaps this encounter was not just about you, but about something much greater. Deep down, it began to understand that there was a reason it had been sent to you. This encounter was not a mistake or an accident. It was something planned, something that was part of a purpose it could not fully comprehend. You made it question everything, its mission, its existence, and even what it meant to be who it was. It realized that, in trying to destroy you, it was being confronted with something it could not destroy: the truth. And this truth was so powerful that it was beginning to shape something new within it. For the first time, it began to ask itself who it was beyond the role it played. The demon's transformation was not immediate. It was slow, gradual, but inevitable. Every interaction with you made it question its own choices, its own traumas, and, most importantly, its own existence more deeply. It was sent to destroy, but it realized that, in trying to break you, it was being dismantled from within. The Yudu shadows that defined it, which had always been its fortress, began to unravel. It started to feel something it had never imagined possible: fragility. And, strangely, this fragility did not weaken it, but made it see what it had ignored for so long. It began to see that, perhaps, its mission was not truly to destroy, but to learn. As it was forced to confront its nature, something deeper emerged. It began to recognize that the strength you carried was not just a barrier against its darkness, but also a light inviting it to change. It was not an aggressive force, nor an attempt to save it. It was something much simpler and, for that very reason, much more powerful. Your presence showed that there was a choice, even for someone like it. And this was revolutionary. Throughout its existence, it had believed it was bound to the role imposed on it. But now, it began to realize that perhaps there was another possibility. This process of change was painful for it. What was once certainty was now doubt. What was once control now felt like chaos. But, at the same time, it began to feel something it had never felt before: freedom. For the first time, it saw that it was not limited by the role it had always played. It began to understand that true strength did not come from controlling others, but from facing oneself. And this was what you made it see, without even saying a word. Your posture, your authenticity, and your calm were enough to challenge it to question everything. This transformation was not just personal, it had much greater implications. When something so profound happens, the impact extends beyond the individuals involved. The change within it began to resonate in other dimensions, altering the balance between light and darkness. This encounter was not just about you and it. It was part of something much greater. Your light not only exposed its shadows, but also began to reconfigure the very spiritual fabric around it. This event, though it may seem individual, is part of a plan that transcends human understanding. And you, by acting in your essence, were the catalyst for this change. Now, the demon can no longer ignore what is happening. It was transformed from predator to someone who feels vulnerable and, at the same time, hopeful. It does not know for sure what the future holds, but one thing is clear: it is no longer the same. And all of this began because you remained steadfast, because you chose to be who you are without yielding to the darkness it brought. This encounter was not a battle won by strength or violence. It was a transformation guided by truth. And, even if it never fully admits it, it knows that it was your presence that initiated this change. The impact of this encounter went beyond the dynamic between you and the demon. It triggered changes that reverberated beyond what the eyes can see. The spiritual balance between light and darkness, often subtle and invisible, began to adjust. It was not a sudden shift, but something that unfolded steadily, like a river changing its course. What happened between you was not just an ordinary interaction, but an event that touched deeper dimensions of existence. Your ability to face the shadow without losing yourself in it created a rupture in the pattern that has always dominated the clash between these forces. It was as if the universe itself was re-evaluating the rules governing the interaction between light and darkness. This shift was not isolated or without consequence. The transformation within the demon began to create new possibilities in the balance of forces. Where there was once destruction and conflict, there was now the possibility of integration. Your posture, rooted in truth and authenticity, not only disarmed the demon, but also planted a seed of change in other planes. This seed, though small, carries the potential to generate something much greater. The struggle between light and shadow, so often marked by violence and antagonism, now had a new element: the possibility of mutual transformation. You proved, without deliberate intention, that confrontation does not need to be destructive to result in change. This does not mean that conflict has ceased to exist. The tension between light and darkness is intrinsic to the balance of the universe. But what has changed is the way this balance is achieved. Your presence demonstrated that light does not need to eliminate darkness to triumph. It can, instead, transform it. This understanding has opened new paths for the spiritual evolution of all involved, from humans to the forces operating on higher planes. What once seemed fixed, immutable, is now fluid and full of possibilities. This is the true impact of your encounter. Not just a momentary victory, but a transformation that alters the very dynamics of the universe. For the demon, this new reality was disconcerting. It had never experienced anything like it before. It always knew what to do, always carried out its missions with precision and efficiency. But now, it was faced with something that made it question everything. It realized that it was no longer just about destroying or being destroyed. Now, it had the opportunity to choose, something it had never considered before. This choice, though frightening for it, was also liberating. It was being confronted with the possibility of a different path, and that changed everything. In this context, the role of the Chosen One became even more evident. Your mission is not just personal, but also collective. What you did in this encounter goes beyond transforming a being or resolving a conflict. You opened doors that were once closed, not just for it, but for everyone facing the tension between light and shadow in their own lives. Your posture, your strength, and your truth became an example of how even the darkest challenges can be transformed into opportunities for growth and evolution. This is the impact of the Chosen One: to create profound changes, not just within yourself, but in everything around you. You did not try to save the demon. That was never your intention. But by remaining steadfast in your essence, you created the space necessary for it to confront its own truths. Your presence, marked by authenticity and inner strength, was the trigger for a transformation process it could never have imagined. This shows the true role of the Chosen One: to be a catalyst for profound change, not through impositions, but through the simple act of existing and standing firm in the face of chaos. You did not force it to change. You showed it that there was another possibility. And this freedom of choice is what makes the transformation genuine. This ability to provoke change goes far beyond this encounter. It affects everything around you. Your capacity to maintain inner peace, even in the face of the greatest adversities, creates an impact that inspires others to do the same. It is not something you plan or force. It simply happens because you choose to remain true to who you are. This fidelity to yourself is not just a demonstration of personal strength, but also a reminder to those who observe you that true change begins within. Your light does not fade in the face of darkness, and this is something everyone, including the demon, is forced to acknowledge. What happened in this encounter is proof that the role of the Chosen One is not to destroy darkness, but to integrate it. This does not mean accepting evil or ignoring its effects, but recognizing that even in shadow, there are possibilities for transformation. This approach is much more challenging because it requires patience, resilience, and a deep understanding of oneself. However, it is also the only approach that creates lasting and meaningful change, and you demonstrated this clearly. Your resistance and your truth not only disarmed the demon, but also paved the way for a new kind of balance. This mission you carry is not easy. Facing darkness, whether external or internal, is a task that demands more than courage. It requires a constant commitment to truth. But it is precisely this commitment that sets you apart. The impact you had in this encounter is just a reflection of the impact you can have on the world around you. Every choice you make, every time you choose light over shadow, you are creating waves of change that extend far beyond what you can see. And this is what makes your journey so important. The demon, in turn, now understands that its transformation was possible because you remained unshakable. It realizes that true power does not lie in brute force or manipulation, but in the ability to stand firm in the face of chaos. This lesson, though painful for it, is also liberating. It may not admit it now, but it knows that something within it has changed forever. And this change was only possible because you chose to be who you are, without compromising your truth. This not only transformed it, but also reinforced the greater purpose that brought you here. The encounter between you and the demon was not a coincidence. Every moment, every exchange, every decision was part of something much greater. A plan that transcends what can be easily seen or understood. It is a dance between light and shadow, something that has existed since the beginning of time and will continue as long as there is balance to be maintained. You and it were placed on the same path, not as enemies, but as opposing elements that, when they meet, have the potential to create something new. This event reflects a karmic cycle, where seemingly irreconcilable forces intersect to provoke profound changes, both in those involved and in the balance of the universe. Within this greater plan, your role is clear. You are a living example of overcoming, of how it is possible to face even the darkest forces without losing integrity. But, more than that, you demonstrate that darkness does not need to be destroyed for light to prevail. This understanding not only alters the dynamics of the encounter, but also serves as a beacon for others facing their own internal struggles. Just as you face the demon, others also face the shadows within themselves. Your posture and choices become a model for those seeking to overcome their own battles. This interaction is not just a reflection of the universal struggle between light and shadow, but also a mirror of the internal journey of every being. Everyone, at some point, is confronted with parts of themselves they would rather ignore. But, just as you face the demon with authenticity and strength, your story teaches that facing these shadows is the first step toward transformation. Your presence and courage create a collective impact, inspiring others not just to resist, but to transform what once seemed insurmountable. This is the true power of the Chosen One. Not to fight against shadows, but to integrate them in a way that generates growth and balance. The demon, now in the midst of its transformation process, begins to understand that its encounter with you was not just a test for you, but also a lesson for it. It was forced to confront something it had always avoided: its own fragility and the possibility of choice. For the first time, it realizes that it is not limited to the role it has always played. It does not have to be just an agent of destruction. This realization, though painful, is also liberating. It begins to understand that even those created to live in shadows can find a different path, as long as they are willing to face their own truths. This process of transformation, both for it and for you, is a reflection of something much greater. It is a reminder that every encounter, every confrontation, is an opportunity for growth and evolution. You did not just change the trajectory of a dark being, you showed that light, when firm and authentic, has the power to transform everything around it. And this lesson, though deeply personal, carries universal implications. It demonstrates that the balance between light and shadow is not a battle to be won, but a dance to be understood. And you, chosen one, are an essential part of that dance. Now, the demon is no longer the same. It was forced to face truths that were once buried in its essence. It saw that it is not bound to the role imposed on it, and that there are possibilities it had never considered. And all of this happened because you chose to be true to who you are. It was not through force or control, but through authenticity and truth. Its transformation is not just personal. It is proof that the balance between light and shadow can be achieved. And this, chosen one, is the most powerful legacy you can leave. What you did was not just an isolated act. It was a milestone in something much greater. You did not just transform a demon. You challenged a system that has always operated through fear and destruction. Your presence showed that there is another path, that light does not need to fight darkness to triumph, but can, instead, integrate and transform it. This understanding is not limited to this encounter. It extends to everything you do. Every choice you make reinforces this legacy. Every action creates new possibilities for those who observe you, even without you realizing it. Your impact does not end here. What you provoked in this encounter is just the beginning of something greater. Your journey will continue to lead you into situations where your light will be tested, where forces will try to divert you. But now, you know what happens when you remain true to your essence. You not only survived this confrontation, but emerged from it stronger, more aware of your role and the impact your presence creates. This does not mean the challenges are over, but it means you understand the purpose behind each one. You are not here to hide or live defensively. You are here to expand this light and continue transforming what needs to be changed. The transformation you caused in the demon does not mean it became completely different overnight. Change is a process, and now it faces a path it had never considered before. But the simple fact that it is no longer the same proves that your presence was enough to plant the seed of evolution. And this is the mark of the chosen one. Not to impose change, but to create the space where change becomes inevitable. You showed that even those created to destroy can find another alternative when confronted with truth. And this truth does not come from force, but from clarity and integrity in how you live your mission. Now, the path before you continues to unfold, full of new interactions, new challenges, and new opportunities to expand this impact. But one thing is certain: you are not the same as before. You emerged from this encounter with more understanding, more depth, and more awareness of what it truly means to be a chosen one. And this understanding cannot be taken from you. It has become part of who you are, an unshakable truth that will continue to guide every step of your journey. What you do from here will further define the impact you leave on the world. But, regardless of future challenges, one thing is certain: your light will continue to change everything around you. If you have made it this far, you already know that this encounter was not just about a demon trying to destroy you. It was a test, a revelation, a confirmation of the strength you carry within. You not only survived this confrontation, but transformed it, creating an impact that goes beyond your own experience. Now, the question that defines everything remains: how will you use this knowledge from now on? Your light has already proven it can alter the course of what seemed immutable. So, what will you do with it? This is the question that will determine not only your future, but the ongoing impact you will have on the world around you. You are not alone on this journey. There are others like you, facing similar challenges, discovering their power, and learning to deal with the forces trying to extinguish their light. So, share this message. Help other chosen ones understand what is happening to them. If this story resonated with you, click the button below and subscribe. Do not let this transformation stop here. There is much more to be revealed, and every chosen one who awakens strengthens the collective impact we are creating. Do not forget to leave the number 777 in the comments to manifest that you are ready for divine intervention, and continue your journey by watching the recommended video on the screen. Here, you will find more transformative messages to fuel your journey. May your journey be illuminated, and may you never lose the courage to follow your instincts. Until the next video, and may the peace of God always be with you.